Hey, it's been a hell of a few weeks in AI land. Now, some of you may know I work as a digital marketer for small businesses. And this week in particular, the last couple of weeks in particular, is something that I've really had to come to grips with, right? It's one of those moments where it's like, oh shit, we need to I need to change. I need to be doing not changing in what I specialize in, but changing in how I work. And I think over the next 12 months, you're going to get a huge amount of people that are going to feel the same way, particularly when it comes to AI. And there are going to be two options, right? It'll freak you out and you'll want to have nothing to do with it, or you are going to pick up and run with it and see how it can make things easier for you. I don't know about the mass layoffs because there's been lots of stuff already in the press about AI layoffs, certainly here in Australia, but all over the world. And it's come out now that not all of those are directly related to AI. Even Sam Altman said this week that it's a bit of AI washing, I believe the term he used. So I don't think, if you were to tell me right now, hey, get rid of me and replace me with AI, I would probably laugh and say that's probably not going to happen. But that being said, if you are answering a phone, that's all you do, then your days are probably numbered. Unless, of course, you live overseas. And if that's the case, then you're probably okay because you're going to be much cheaper than getting an AI to do it. If you are a coder, you already know, I'm not telling you anything new here, that it is obvious what can be done better than you, faster than you, more accurate than you can at the moment. Okay? I'm not telling you anything that you don't know because you have heard of it, you've probably seen it, you're already working with it. So you know how good this stuff is. I think AI works the best when it's in conjunction with a subject matter expert. That's when you can really get some cool stuff happening. Okay? And that's what I've noticed this past week. Okay? Now, as far as this video goes, it's not really for people that don't really know what they're doing when it comes to websites. Okay, so it's really for certainly developers that aren't trying this yet, or marketers that aren't trying this yet. Anyone that's into digital stuff, you should probably already on this stuff already. This is a pretty advanced. So if all you've done is maybe a Shopify website or WordPress and you've installed a theme or you use Elementor, this might be a little bit more than you're probably ready for. But you need to pay attention because this stuff's amazing what it can do. So you're probably wondering, what's the problem with a WordPress site? When it comes to WordPress specifically, right, we are dealing with bloated kind of WordPress sites. If I look at some of the old ones that I did back in the day, I jump in there and I'm like, my God, there is a lot of shit happening here. Like, I don't even know how this thing loads, to be honest. And that obviously adds to slow load time. There's some security issues, a lot of security issues. There's some SEO issues with kind of this plugin stack that gets bloated and more bloated, right? Not to mention that time that you're spending hours and hours wrestling with with themes, with different page builders that you use, and stuff that just breaks for no reason. So the problem is, as a business owner, if you're a business owner, is that you're paying for this complexity that you don't necessarily need. We all know we need a website. If you're running a business, you need a website. You need something that's yours that you can have forever. what I've found, certainly with majority, like 99% of my clients, never update it. They never go in there and make changes. So having this ability to jump into an admin and, add testimonials and add content and everything else, they don't do it. So I'm creating this convoluted setup for people that don't actually go in there and utilize it. So it's just making it hard for me, right? I don't need the convoluted setup. I can go in there and I can do what I need to do. That's what's changed my thinking. Is like, I'm jumping through all these hoops and we don't actually need to do this because people don't need it. And the nice thing with what I'm implementing is they can still send me the stuff and it can be updated really, really quickly. So it's not even an issue. The biggest problem I have with WordPress, and probably thanks to AI, is the security issue. The security issue is huge. It's going to be a thing that just gets worse and worse. I've been hit a few times in the last 12 months, and it's the worst feeling. It's just you're fighting against these bots and bloody whatever else to keep things safe and secure for a system they don't even want to log into. So it's really just giving me the shits, creating headaches for me. I don't need that. So that's why I'm looking in another direction. Okay, there's an upkeep to keeping all these things updated, right? All the plugins updated. You're dealing with a live database. These things need to be updated. Now that I'm switching to Astro, and we'll have a look at that now, it's not something you need to worry about. Yes, it can do it. It can still do it. And there are some cool integrations with Astro if that's what you need. I haven't really gone down that path yet, but it's something that probably for, that tiny 1 or 2% sites you may need to allow for, and the pricing will absolutely reflect that. So let's have a look, right? Make sure that we can see I'm still alive. Hello there. All right. So this is Astro. So you can find that at astro.build, and you can learn more about it there. And what Astro is a web framework, you can see here, for content-driven websites. What does that mean? So it means that we can plug it into all sorts of other frameworks. So we'll go in here. They're talking about the speed here when it comes to Astro. But, we can tie them with React or Vue or Preact. I've not heard of Solid. I don't know what that is. But Svelte, I've heard of. So you can basically take your existing stack, except WordPress. We'll get to that in a second. And we can utilize Astro. So what Astro does for the layperson is you work on a local version, so on the computer. You then package it and it builds it, and what it deploys to the internet is vanilla HTML, vanilla depending on what you're using, frameworks, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Most instances don't need a database, so we can have the benefits, of course, is that it's super fast. There's security issues aren't there. That's not what's magic. It's when you pair it with an LLM. So it could be Claude Code. It could be Google Anti-Gravity, which I've used both. It could be Codex, which is ChatGPT's new one. It can learn what it needs to about Astro and go through the documentation and do all of the heavy lifting for you. So when it comes to working with it in a development environment, and I'll do some other videos on this too, it works really well because you can see locally what you're doing, make all the changes, get everything set up, then you deploy it, you set it up to GitHub, and that deploys on whatever platform or hosting you've got. Very cool. So I've tried it with Claude Code. So Claude is, in my opinion, the leader as of February 26th, because next week it'll be different. I set a site up on the weekend, and then you've got Google Anti-Gravity, which works with, it's a fork of VS Code, and you've got, you basically chat with a thing called an agent manager, and they create sub-agents, very similar to how Claude Code does it. But what it's enabled me to do is take a design that I like. I give it the instructions to create the environment for Astro, set it all up, and then start creating the content. And because I know what I'm doing, I can ask for things done a certain way to make things easier for me going forward. Within, with Claude Code, with Google, Gemini, to create what you want, so you don't have to type anything. There's some bits you got to type, but generally speaking, I don't really want to have to do too much of that. And then, you're working directly with VS Code or Anti-Gravity, and that's got Git integration built in, so you can send your updates up to GitHub, and then it deploys automatically depending on your setup. So it's cool. I will do some more videos on this stuff. But I wanted to show you what I did, okay? So this was done probably all up in about a day, okay, this website. And it's not perfect. The design isn't perfect, and this is not me, okay? So it's basically, I worked with Claude to come up with an idea about what I want to promote, through stoka.com. And this is what it created for me. So there's some of its placeholder stuff I need to update later. But, it's done a really nice job very quickly. And because we can deploy it quickly, that's amazing. So it's got some really nice features, but it's worked in with a lot of it automated. I didn't really have to do too much. For example, this sticky section here with the different sort of contents, that was just done. And that's the big difference between Gemini and Claude Code. Claude Code has a design skill, and it does a really good job at generating some great designs. I just think Gemini does a better job. Give it a design, like a screenshot or an example. It does a pretty good job at replicating it. And then you just, like any project manager, you're going to finagle things and come up with a way to say, okay, well, when it came to, say, the services section, I decided this is how I wanted it to look. And I went through and we changed how buttons work and the hover states and things like that. Same thing with these little animations, subtle animations. How the FAQs work, I went back and said, hey, look, I need this to be updated. So it created a JSON file that I could go ahead and update just on it, really quickly. Then that opens up for things that I can incorporate into it later. So if a client was to say, look, I want to be able to add my own FAQs in here, we go, cool. Let's find a way that you don't need an admin, right? It can just be an email. It can just be a Google Sheet that you fill in that automatically pulls through and puts it up on the site. Just tools that they're already using, right? That's cool. That is the mind-blowing thing. Open your eyes to what's possible. And you've still got to have, you've still got to have the content ideas. You've still got to have, I'll switch back here for a sec. You've still got to have the idea of where you need to get to. So if I said, hey, just make me a website, what it's going to return is pretty shit. And we've all tried it and it's been pretty average. But when you give it something to go off, the more info you give it and then you start working with it, it does a pretty good job, I would say. So does it mean that all my sites are going to be on, say, the Astro and Google or Claude Code? Majority, there's a small percentage that don't need it. I still need to know what I'm after and I still need to know what I'm doing. So I think this stuff is the future. Okay. And one thing I'll do some videos on how this stuff works and how I worked with it. But what I wanted to get at was this is the future. This is where things are heading. Now, if you are on WordPress and it's working for you, cool. Just stay with that. It doesn't matter. But what you need to know is going forward, the big, expensive websites are going to be a thing of the past. And we're going to shift where that time and effort is spent. We'll see what happens. Let me know if you want a video on me creating some of this stuff to show you how to get started. It's exciting. I'm really excited by it. A little bit terrified because it's my work as well. But if I don't pick this up and run with it and learn from it, how am I supposed to get better? How am I supposed to expand? Okay, so I think the same for anyone else that's in the same boat is play with this stuff, start using it. It's not going to take your job if it's helping you create more work. Okay, at the moment anyway, in February 26. That's what I got for now. If you have any questions, let me know. Happy to do some more videos. I'll catch you next time.